Tell one of your jokes. Tell the one about the kayak or the canoe.
What's the joke about the canoe?
He gets in a boat.
Oh, the purple wombat.
I haven't heard this. You know you want to say it.
How long does your camera record for?
Oh my god, is it
I think
that
it'll do
long?
it for a while.
How long could it be if you have to ask that question? You have one of the big
Let me
ones.
tell you guys a different joke that Mallory hasn't heard either. It's the monk joke. Have you heard the monk joke?
I have not heard any
This
of your
is
jokes.
like the joke that started it all for me. My first terrible joke. Heard it in high school.
Is that like your thing, terrible jokes?
I don't think they're terrible, but other people do. So,
No comment.
there are these two brothers, Timmy and Jimmy. And Timmy lives at the top of this hill, and Jimmy lives at the bottom of the hill. And one day, Timmy calls Jimmy, and Timmy's the younger brother, so he's used to Jimmy, like, always taking care of him. And so Timmy calls Jimmy, and he says, "Hey, Jimmy, I'm not feeling too well. I'm sick. Will you come make me some soup? I don't have any soup. Can you stop and get some?" And Jimmy's like, "Okay." Excuse me. And so Jimmy goes to the store and gets some soup, and soup was on BOGO, so he gets 2 cans. And he gets in his little yellow car, and he's driving up the hill to Timmy's house, and he's driving along, and all of a sudden, pa-tunk, 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 his little yellow car breaks down. And he's like, "Crap, what am I gonna do?" And so he looks across the street, and there's a monastery. He's like, "I'll go see if that monastery has a phone." So he goes into the monastery, and there's a monk standing at the door, and the monk says, "Hello, what can I help you with?" And Jimmy says, "My car broke down. You have an ant on your leg." It's one of those big ones. And the monk says, "I can't help you fix your car." And Jimmy says, I just need a phone so I can call AAA and they can come pick up my car, or like come fix my car, or whatever AAA does." And the monk's like, "There's a phone down the hall." And so Jimmy's walking down the hall to the phone, and all of a sudden he hears this horrible scream. "Ah!" And he goes to the phone. He goes to the phone and he calls AAA first. And then he calls AAA and he's like, "Hey, AAA, come, like, my car broke down. Can you help me? I'm on the hill between mine and Timmy's house." And they're like, "Okay, yeah, we'll come help you." And so then when he's walking down the hall back, he hears the terrible scream. "Ah!" And so then he goes back out and he's like, Mr. Monk, I heard this horrible scream." And the monk's like, "Yes, you heard the scream." He's like, "What was it?" The monk's like, "I can't tell you." And Jimmy's like, "Why?" And the monk says, "Because only monks can know what the scream was." And Jimmy was like, "Okay, that's dumb, but I guess that's fair. I'm not a monk." So then Jimmy goes and he waits for AAA to fix his car, and AAA comes and he goes and visits his brother and makes him some soup or whatever. And so then he goes back home, and then the next day Timmy calls him again and he says, "Jimmy, I ran out of eggs. Will you stop at the store and get me some eggs, and come over and we can have some eggs together?" Jimmy's like, "Okay, I guess. I'm not doing anything else." Are you paying attention to my joke?
I am. I'm wondering where it's going.
So then Jimmy goes and he gets his eggs and he takes them up to Timmy's house, and as he's driving, all of a sudden, pa-tunk, 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 his little yellow car breaks down. And he's like, "Oh no, what am I going to do? My car broke down again. This car sucks." And so he looks across the street and there's the monastery, and he's like, I'll just ask to use their phone again. So he goes over to the monk and he says, "Excuse me, Mr. Monk, can I please use your phone again? My car broke down." And the monk says, yeah, that's fine. It's down the hall." And so Jimmy's walking down the hall. He gets to the phone. He's like, "Hey, AAA, my car broke down again. This hill is really killer, just makes my car break down every time. And they're like, okay, yeah, Jimmy, we'll come fix your car. So then he's walking back down the hall. It's like, all of a sudden, he hears this terrible scream. Ah! And he runs back down the hall to the monk and he's like, Mr. Monk, what is that scream? It's terrible. It's like nothing I've ever heard before. And the monk says, I can't tell you, because only monks can know what the scream is. And Jimmy's like, but why? What's so special about it? And the monk's just like, I cannot tell you what the scream is because you're not a monk. And so Jimmy's like, whatever. And so he goes out and AAA fixes his car. And then he goes to Timmy's house and makes him some eggs. And then goes home. And then the next day, Timmy calls him again. He's like, hey, Jimmy, like, bring me some food. Let's bring me some, I don't know, milk. I ran out of milk. I really want some cereal. And so Jimmy's like, Timmy, I'm sick of you. Why do you always keep asking me to bring you food? Like, go to the store yourself. And Jimmy's like, I just don't want to. Come on, Jimmy, you're my brother. Bring me some milk. It's like, fine, I'll bring you some milk. And so he goes to the store and he gets him some milk and he's driving up the street in his car. And all of a sudden, pa-tunk, 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 his little yellow car breaks down. And he's like, what am I going to do if my car breaks down? And so he goes over to the monastery again, and it's like the same monk is standing outside, and he says, excuse me, Mr. Monk, can I please use your phone again? And the monk says, you should really get a different car or something, because it keeps breaking down. Jimmy's like, I know, I just can't. And the monk says, well, the phone is down the hall, you can use it. And so Jimmy walks down the hall to the phone and he calls AAA, and AAA is like, yeah, we'll come pick up your car, we'll come fix your car. And he's walking back down to the monk, and all of a sudden he hears this horrible scream. Ah! And then he goes to the monk and he says, Mr. Monk, you have to tell me what the scream is. It's driving me crazy. I need to know. Like, you gotta tell me. And the monk is like, I could only tell you if you were a monk. And so Jimmy says, okay, I want to become a monk. What do I have to do to become a monk? And the monk says, you must. To become a monk, Jimmy, you must travel to China and collect 12,000 blades of grass from the grass plains of Serenity. And then you must travel to Egypt and collect 10,000 grains of sand from the sandy plains of Tranquility. And then you must travel to Switzerland and marry a woman named Brenda. And he's like, okay, yeah, I could do that. I'm sick of my brother anyway. I'm not taking him this milk now. So, ha ha ha, Timmy. And so Jimmy travels to China, and it takes him 3 years to collect 12,000 grains of sand or 12,000 blades of grass from the grassy plains of Serenity. And then he travels to Egypt, and it takes him 2 more years to collect 10 grains of sand from the sandy plains of Tranquility. And then he travels to Switzerland, and it takes him 3 years to meet a woman named Brenda. She doesn't like him. So then it takes him 2 more years to find another woman named Brenda who he falls in love with and marries. And so he travels back to his hometown with his grass and his sand and his Brenda. And he goes to the monk and he says, Mr. Monk, here are the fruits of my monk travels. Grass, sand, Brenda. And the monk says, you are now a monk, Jimmy. Congratulations. And Jimmy says, thank you. It only took me 10 years. And the monk says, I I will now show you what the scream is. And Jimmy says, thank you. So they walk down the hall towards where the phone is, and they turn into a passageway that Jimmy had never noticed before. And then they walk down this passageway, and at the end there are 3 doors. And the monk takes off the keys from his belt and opens the door in the middle. And they go through the door and down these spiral stairs forever. And they finally get to the bottom, and it's in like a cave area. And there's a path down one side of the cave that's nice and paved, and there's another path down the other side of the cave that's all rocky. So they go down the path that's all rocky, and they climb some, and then they descend some. They descend like this. and then there's a track with a cart on it, and they get in the cart, and the monk, does the like railroad push thing down the cart, and they get out of the cart, and they go up some stairs and then down a ladder, and they turn around this corner, and there's this grand door that's just huge. And then the monk opens the door, and then Jimmy finally finds out after 10 years what that terrible scream was.
Is that it?
Do you want to know what the scream was?
Yeah, I want to know what the scream was.
I can't tell you because you're not a monk.